Okay, this is chapter 25, and we're going to be covering how to rescuing and moving a victim or victims. Now this chapter goes over, of course, drownings, water rescue, all that good stuff. I'm going to focus more on the water rescue and the drownings we talked about in the last video about how to care for somebody that's drowning or how to use CPR on somebody that has drowned. And so I want to focus more on that because a lot of this chapter is showing you how to move somebody, and that would be better for a visual representation. So if I make another video, I'll show you all like the seat carry and the clothes drag and the shoulder drag, all that good stuff. So it'd be better to see that visually than in a lecture format. So more of a skill-based example. So let's talk about water rescue. Let me undo that. So water rescue, and so what you want to follow is called reach, throw, and this is just a priority of what you should try first if possible, and go. So if you can, if the victim is within reach, you want to try to use some sort of pole to reach them. Let me write reach over here. So use some sort of pole or ladder or straight stick, something that you can reach out and pull them in with. So that's if they're within reach. Then if not, you can throw, and you can throw anything that floats. So anything that floats, it's going to provide the individual with some buoyancy, and you might want to tie something onto it so that you can pull them in. So the normal person can throw about 50 feet, and if they're outside of 50 feet and you have access to some sort of boat, you would row over to them. And so reaching and throwing, at least you're still on land. It's not likely that you're going to end up in the water. Now once you take any kind of boat, I mean, it could be a rowboat, it could be a kayak, a topless, a seated kayak, whatever, a small boat of some sort, get over to them. You want to pull them up on the boat from the front or the back. It's a lot more stable. So not from the sides, because that'll flip you. Now, a sit on top kayak's a little easier. It doesn't matter if it flips over or not, because it's not going to sink. But again, you might end up in the water. Anytime you row out to somebody, there's always a higher risk than these other two that you're going to end up in the water, and a drowning victim will pull you under. So you got to be real careful, because their main concern is getting above the water, and they'll try to climb up you and they can pull you under. And once they get a hold of you, it's really hard to get them to let go. And if you have no other choice and you decide that you want to try to save this person and you're a good swimmer, no other options, you could swim out to them or wade out to them, depending on how deep it is. This would be your last option. It's a lot more dangerous because, like I was saying earlier, if somebody gets a hold of you, they can pull you under. Ideally, if they start to try to pull you down and they won't comply with what you're asking, put your feet in between you and the other person. And if they get a hold of you, you may have to kick them away. And if they really get a hold of you where you can't kick them off anymore, you may have to punch them. You do whatever you can, because they may pull you under. If they pull you under and they keep trying to pull you down, swim deep underneath them. So they'll let you go. If you go deep and it starts to pull them under, they'll let you go, most likely. And you just swim deep and get away from them that way. So you shouldn't be in the water if you're not a good swimmer. So hopefully you can just swim down deep. Don't keep trying to go up yourself, because they're going to keep trying to climb on top of you. So it's best for you just to go down deep and swim away from them. So what is drowning? It's essentially suffocation. Suffocation with water. Or your windpipe has closed down. We'll talk about that in just a sec. So suffocation. And so you've aspirated, or your larynx is shut down and it's not allowing air in. So you also have a near drowning. And so in this case, the person survives. So they almost completely drown, but they don't. So what happens during your drowning? They swallow water. Doesn't always have to go exactly this way, but I'm just starting off with the most likely. Then they vomit the water. Once they vomit the water, they may aspirate. So they may breathe it down into their lungs. And this doesn't have to happen in this order. They could immediately aspirate the water down into their lungs. So typically they swallow water, they vomit the water, they aspirate on their vomit. Sometimes, just like I referred to earlier, the vocal cords or larynx will shut down. It'll close up. Then after they no longer get enough air, they may seize, and then death if they're not cared for fast enough. So what types of drownings do we have? So let's go over the types. We have a dry drowning. So it's about 10 to 15% of the cases are dry. And that's where the larynx spasms. So you have spasms in the larynx and closes up. It's easier to bring these people back around, to resuscitate them. Whoops. I can't get, come on, work, pen. Resuscitate. So it's easier to resuscitate these individuals. And then you have a wet drowning, which is about 85%. Let me scroll up. Pen's not wanting to cooperate. So about 85%, and this is aspiration. So they breathe in the water. So if we have fresh water and it enters the lungs, what it can do is it'll destroy blood cells. Remember back to that chapter where we have the alveoli, the bronchioles. So that gaseous exchange between the arteries, the pulmonary arteries, well, pulmonary capillary, I guess. What happens, instead of air going back and forth, water enters the capillaries and it starts to destroy the red blood cells. So it starts to do damage there, so not enough oxygen gets out. So that's with fresh water, and that'll lead to cardiac emergencies or cardiac arrest. Well, if this is a saltwater drowning, what's going to happen is water leaves the bloodstream. And this should make sense because water is going to travel in the direction of wherever the highest concentration of solute is. So let's say this is a capillary, this is an alveoli, and so if we have a lot more solute, so salt being our solute here, a higher concentration than here, then water is going to go in that direction. And so what happens is the fluid starts to build up in the lungs. And they can lose about 25% of their blood volume. Plasma in the blood, large percent of it, 90-something percent, I can't remember the exact number, is going to be water of blood plasma. It's made up of 90% water. Maybe more than that. It may be much higher than that. I can't remember the exact number right off the top of my head. And then, so essentially what happens is the victim drowns on their own fluid. And you also have what's called secondary drownings. So with secondary drowning, typically the victim will die within 96 hours because you have a condition called aspiration pneumonia. Where fluid starts to build up in the lungs, and essentially the person suffocates from that. So, quick overview, and I covered some of the major points. The vast majority of that book is more skill-based, so it would be better for me to make skill-related videos or have other students make skill-related videos so you can see some of the ways to move somebody. So this is more content-related, so I felt it fit better into a lecture. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you in the next one.